welcome to episode 7 of the Van Dyke Mortgage WMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by Durga Insurance Group. I'm one of your hosts, Scott DeCamp, and the other hosts are Ken Byard.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
And Tate Stine. Hey, Tate Stine. I'll get that right. Tate Stine. It's been a rough morning.
Nice to hear from you, too.
Yeah, jeez. It's a rough start. We are pleased to bring in as a special guest today 2022 Ravenna grad Kyle Beebe. Thanks for coming in, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No relation to Brian Beebe. Not the Brian Beebe of Whitehall.
No, not that one.
When I say Brian Beebe around here, and that's, no offense to your dad if I'm using that same word, because your dad doesn't want anything to do with the other Brian Beebe. Trust me when I say that.
We were just talking about that before the show, about the two Brian Beebes.
Yeah, the Beebe I remember was the one that could hoop.
Yeah.
Even like at 60 years old, he could hoop.
Oh, yeah.
That was the Beebe I know.
Yeah, I told him, I said, I don't know if that one was my dad.
It definitely wasn't the Whitehall Brian Beebe.
No.
No, he could play a little bit, but, I shouldn't, because, we'll just leave that alone. All right, yeah, Brian?
Fair.
He's been begging to get on the podcast, by the way. So there's another Beebe that's on the podcast before Brian Beebe. So how's that feel, Brian? So how's it been going, Kyle?
Good. I'm going to Grand Valley right now. That's going good so far. Taking classes there. I had class this morning before I came up here.
Oh, wow, that's commitment.
Yep. I try and get all my classes done in the morning so that I can be done, because I'm helping coach back at Ravenna. I'm doing middle school football right now, so just trying to get all my classes done early so I can get back for that and then still do my work.
How's your weekend, guys?
It was good.
Pretty uneventful. A lot of football. A lot of disappointing football to watch.
A lot of football.
Mm-hmm.
And we went down to Hope College to watch Hope play Adrian with the upset.
Yeah, I saw that.
TJ had a nice day. They had 9 catches, 90-something yards, but Adrian had some dudes. They physically manhandled them up, Hope up front. So, but it was great weather, so we'll take it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before we get too far into this, we always have to thank our very generous sponsors. Obviously, we have our title sponsors, which we mentioned at the outset of this, but that also includes Grieve Law, West Michigan Joint Divorce, Big Stone Therapies, Green Ridge Realty with Chris Dykeman and Sarah Reel, North Grove Brewers, Foundation Systems of Michigan and John Botten, Coldwell Banker with Dave Dusenberry, Scheid Plumbing, Heating and Cooling. And again, special thanks to our title sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage Lakeshore, whose commitment to finding you the right home loan is second to none. Their experienced licensed team is ready to work with you to ensure a smooth and timely loan process from application to closing. Check them out at 460 West Western Avenue in Muskegon, or give them a call at 231-332-6500. And then last but certainly not least, Durga Insurance Group, which looks at success through a different set of lenses, placing their relationship with their clients first. Regardless of what stage you're in life, they are there for each of you, for you each step of the way, and I'll get that out right eventually here. Again, rough morning. But yeah, so they'll help you out. Give them a call at 231-744-9106, or go to 1535 Far Road, Norton Shores, and go see them Monday through Friday. So before we really dive too far into the West Michigan Conference football topic, which that's the season right now, these guys right here sitting next to us can have a little bit of a history. I don't want to say it's a bad history, but they're both 2022 grads, Tate from Montague and Kyle from Ravenna. First of all, I'm going to start with Ken. What do you remember about watching these guys hoop and play football? Well, he played football. He played baseball, and he took the spring off, so...
Yeah, I remember Kyle being able to score, right? Like in basketball, like he was like a tough matchup size-wise for us, just being an overall good athlete and creating problems for us mismatch-wise. Tate, I just remember being studly and dashingly handsome.
Wow. What a great facet to have in your baseball game.
Oh, yeah, and he could shoot, too.
I don't know. How do you take that, Kyle? I mean, he didn't call you good looking.
That's all right.
I'll take that compliment, though. Thank you.
So what was it like? Did you guys go head-to-head much in terms of, were you guarding each other a lot or not? Or do you have different matchups that way?
No, usually, like I remember the first time it started off, Tug was guarding him, and I love Tug, but I'm pretty sure Kyle had 14 in the first half. It ended up switching, so I usually did.
Giving him buckets?
I usually did. I think Tug played him a lot better the junior year, the year I sat out. I think he still had, 20 against us, though? Yeah. So I ended up having to guard him our senior year.
Yep.
And Kyle, what do you remember about playing against this guy?
I just remember tough to get by. I remember in the first half, they had Tate on me, too. And it was just with height, nothing else, just height, just being able to shoot over. But then you put a different guy on you that's a little taller, and you just gotta adjust totally different because you can't just shoot over him anymore. You gotta kind of dig a little deeper in what you're gonna do. So just makes it a lot tougher.
So Tate, where were you sitting when he banked in a 35-footer in overtime to beat you guys in your own gym?
Ouch.
Oh yeah, I remember that vividly. Actually, I think I remember what time it was, what I was doing with my hands and feet. No. I was sitting right next to Coach Osborne, so I got to hear firsthand about how everyone felt about that sitting on the bench.
Did you hear some choice words or
maybe? That's classified information. But I remember that was a great shot. We probably could have played that a little bit better, but I made sure to tell him that was a nice shot after the game too, because it was a big shot. So.
Well, they don't call him Big Shot Beebe for nothing.
Right.
TikTok Tate and Big Shot Beebe.
We
need nicknames.
I don't know if I want one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Based on my last name is with the letter D, so
Yeah, we'll just leave it.
I don't know. And you're a B.
We'll just leave it.
You're a B, so maybe we ought to just let
That's
that
fine.
one rest. So I want to actually get some friendly banter about the various different schools in the West Michigan Conference. We'll get to that in a little bit, but we have to talk about last week first, which was our game of the week, and I would argue was probably the game of the year, even though it didn't look like it in terms of score. But you had Whitehall at Oak Ridge, Battle of Unbeatens, one ranked number 2 in its division, the other ranked number 3 in its division, and Whitehall just handled them, just manhandled them, and Oak Ridge had 127 yards of offense, and 78 of them were on one drive in the fourth quarter after they were down 42-0. So, and teams usually just don't do that to Oak Ridge. Now, is this a vintage Oak Ridge team? I don't know that, but I mean, what were you guys' impressions of that score and that outcome?
Well, the score's not surprising because we got it right. At least half of it, right?
50% of it.
We did, right? So
Yeah, we did.
I guess you did too.
Me too.
We.
No, it's not surprising to me. I thought maybe Oak Ridge would sneak a couple in. But I talked to Kerry Harger on Saturday at the Hope game, and he acknowledged that they're tough and that they're stronger than he maybe anticipated and the guys anticipated. But the outcome didn't surprise me, and how they played that game, kind of where I thought it would land.
What do you think, Al?
Well, with Whitehall, every week I'm kind of looking who they're playing, and then when they played Montague, I was like, oh, maybe this will be a close one. Then they got Oak Ridge the next week. I'm like, all right, maybe this is going to be a closer game. So I'm just waiting for it to be a close game, and then every week I look, because I'm usually at the Ravenna games on Friday, so I'll check at like halftime, and then it's 42-something, 42-0 already, and I'm like, not this week, I guess. So.
No, and I've talked to some Ravenna people and people outside of Ravenna too about Whitehall, and I got a little grief from somebody in Ravenna earlier in the summer, like, oh, you guys always say Whitehall's really good, and they do. We said it before, but they always look good in uniform, like they got some big dudes, and yeah, they should, but then they never really come through and maybe live up to what you think. But yeah. I don't know, man. I think this year's different. I mean, what are you seeing, and do you think there's something to that maybe in the past where maybe past Whitehall teams didn't quite live up to what other people might have thought, but now they are?
Yeah, it definitely looks like that this year. I remember week 1 against Unity because I watched them play last year, and then that game I was like, wow, this might be different then. So ever since that game, I thought maybe it was going to be a little different.
Yeah. What about you, Tate?
No, and we've talked about it in the past. Some of those Whitehall teams that we thought, they were saying in the beginning of the season, this team's really good. This might be the team, but it's just some of those playoff matchups that we talked about. Some of those big teams, some of the Christian Catholic teams. So. I don't know. We'll see how long they go, see how far they go this year.
Well, they got Ludington this week, which Ludington and Oak Ridge are tied for second in the division, both with a loss. So this is the last chance, realistically, for somebody to knock off Whitehall in the regular season. I mean, yeah, they got Fremont Orchard View in weeks 8 and 9, but as far as the teams that are closest to them. So do you guys think Ludington's got any kind of shot?
No.
Same here.
Yeah.
And Ludington's had a solid season. I mean, they, just the one loss, which was to Oak Ridge a couple weeks ago, 30-18. They played them tough there at Oak Ridge. But, as we saw, Friday, Whitehall's a different animal. So,
yeah, I think Ludington's got some scrappers, though. I think they might be able to piece a couple things together, but I don't see it being even as close as the Oak Ridge game.
Now, Whitehall, if you look at down the road a little bit, and we'll have an episode that talks about this with the playoffs coming up and everything, but the team people keep talking about is seeing them maybe down the road to South Christian. South Christian, I think the score is 36-34 against Grand Rapids Catholic. They beat them, so heck of a game.
That's a big win. I mean, that's a statement game right there. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Grand Rapids Catholic's as good as they've been either. They're always good. They're always going to be very good, but so we'll see how that goes. But so now shifting gears to this week, I guess before we do that, though, are there any other observations from last week's games that you guys that really stood out to you, games you saw or anything like that?
I was surprised by that Mason County Hart score. Hart beat them.
Yeah.
I thought coming off of that the week that Mason County played Ravenna pretty tough, that they might have some momentum rolling into that. So that was a little surprising to me. But other than that, things kind of fell into place.
Yeah, I was just surprised by how prolific Whitehall's defense was. I mean, we've known they've been strong offensively and defensively, but only giving up, 8 points the whole game? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And that was late, so.
Yeah. And we got to acknowledge Shelby's 2-game win streak.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd have to say, just like with the Mason County game, because I was up there watching them, they played Ravenna real tough. It was 19-14, so just watching them, I thought they would get Hart this last week, but they have some big guys and they have some size, so when they run that power I is what they're running now, it's hard to stop.
Now, you were at the homecoming game for Ravenna on Friday?
Yep.
So one thing I got to mention too, and we've mentioned him before, but Keegan Swan, that's a really cool story. Yeah. We just released a video today that our Bethany McCullough worked on over the weekend, and I mean, how cool was that just to kind of be in the stadium and see that?
Yeah, it was awesome. I was up top, and as soon as they announced him that he was going in on defense, the place just went wild. So, because everyone knows the story and stuff like that, so it was just cool to hear everyone in the sport and finally get him back out there. And he played quite a bit, and he played good. So,
and for those who don't know, Keegan Swan is a Ravenna senior. About 11 months ago, was diagnosed with leukemia. So his last game he had played before Friday was the 7-6 playoff game against North Muskegon in the playoff opener last year. So, he's just been really fighting this, and sadly we're seeing too many of these things with at North Muskegon. I think that's impacted a couple people, right? There's
two.
Obviously Tate Panucci, and who was the other young man?
Ethan Bates is a junior now who is back into getting chemo. Was in remission for a while, but he's dealing with cancer again. Was a player for us, and so we're hoping to have one of those sort of moments where both Tate and Ethan can come back onto the field and get a chance to participate.
That would be cool, and we're gonna actually get Tate Panucci in the studio here and CatchMark and do a profile on him. So
that's gonna be a trip.
That'll be cool.
Tate's awesome.
Yeah, so that'll be cool. But so on that topic of North Muskegon, shifting to this week, the game of the week, and one that should determine the Rivers Division title is Ravenna at North Muskegon. Again, North Grove Brewers game of the week. We'll have a free live stream on CatchMark SportsNet. Kickoff at 7. Pre-game show at 6:30 with John and Cal. Any early thoughts on that matchup as far as what each team brings to the table?
Oof.
You want to start, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real close game the whole time. I've been looking at North Muskegon and especially James Young, how he can throw the ball. And so I think it's just going to be the biggest part's going to be the Ravenna DBs, pretty much just seeing if they can kind of keep them in check. I don't know if you can really shut them down, but just keep them in check and just how well they play.
It seemed like they're going to have to get that pass rush going too. You got to at least make him uncomfortable because if he has time, it's really tough.
Yeah, Hunter Hogan is a game changer, right? And so we have to be able to contain him, make them find another way to beat us, and then offensively, being able to handle their blitz packages. giving James time to do what he needs to do and establishing a running game, which we were able to do a little bit against Montague, which was nice. Those are some big factors in how that game turns out either way.
Now, you called the game on our CatchMark SportsNet live stream of the Montague North Muskegon game. I mean, what were your impressions of North Muskegon and what they were able to do?
Once again, I was impressed by the passing game, but one thing that I noticed when North Muskegon was on offense is the only time Montague was really able to slow things down was when they were dialing up pressure, when they were rushing maybe 5, 6, and they were starting to get pressure to the quarterback, getting James on his back foot. It started to kind of throw him out of rhythm, and we saw that. He ended up throwing 2 interceptions, both Chase Gowell intercepted, which was his first time playing defense all season. So I don't know if he'll stay there once Owen Peterson comes back, but I think Ravenna's going to have to do a little bit of the same, bringing pressure, mixing things up, and if they're able to get him out of rhythm, that'll definitely give them a better chance.
And you have been watching a lot of football lately. Listen to the way you talk.
That's impressive.
About dialing up pressure and all this stuff.
No, that's basic stuff. I need to watch more football. I need to start to learn a little bit more. I don't know anything about X's and O's.
So, Kyle, you were a quarterback yourself. I mean, when you watch James Young either in person or on video, what do you think? What do you see, and how much do you think he's grown and matured since last year even?
Yeah, I remember when we played him last year, he got hurt. I don't remember if second quarter, but so I didn't really get to play against him a whole lot. But it's just good to see the things he can do for only he's a sophomore, right?
Yep.
Right.
Just be able to lead a team and stuff like that, and be a leader on a team when you're talking to guys that have been there for years, talking to juniors and seniors, and be able to just lead a team like that and just really do that.
And he's got a beautiful flowing mullet going on right now.
So bad.
Is TJ got one? Is that in the works?
Never.
No.
Literally never.
You're not a supporter
His
of the
mother
bullet?
would kill him.
I don't know, man. I think I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but kids just, there's different things that are in and out. Is the mullet, is that back in again?
It should always be out. It should never come back. I know fashion trends, they kind of recycle, but that's one that should never come back. My opinion.
What do you?
I mean, I think mullets have made a pretty decent comeback. We've seen a lot of the perm mullets recently.
Oh man,
And those
They're
things
so bad.
just so gorgeous. Aren't they? You just love to see them out in public. Those luscious manes. No, I'm not a big fan of the mullet either. I try to stay clean shaved, close to the scalp.
But if you let it go, you get a little.
I do get the Jufro, yeah.
You get it going a little bit.
Over in the summer too, the humidity wasn't helping. It was starting to get poofy.
No, do you have Jewish heritage?
No, not that I know.
Because I was going to ask, because you can get away with saying it if you actually are, right?
I think I'm 0.5%. No.
Okay. So, man, I don't know about that, but I think I talked about this before, but it's kind of funny. It's kind of cool, and the things that I like about covering high school sports most. But a couple weeks ago for the game of the week, it was Hart North Muskegon, and I did bring this up last week, I think, about hearing Careless Whisper jamming out of the North Muskegon locker room. I'm like, what? What is going on in there? And they're like, we love this song.
They're a sensitive little group.
So I'm wondering if we're going to hear that again, or if there's maybe something else that we're going to hear coming out of there this Friday.
Any song after a win is a good song.
Yeah.
A sensitive little group.
God. So we'll get back to this North Muskegon Ravenna discussion a little more, but as far as it relates to the big game, but anything else in WMC sports that's kind of caught your eye? I know you're maybe not in it quite as much, Ken, not being in the school system anymore, but anything else that you guys have noticed in any of the other sports that have really, I know you just recorded the catch up, our weekly kind of newscast type style thing, but anything from you guys from the other sports?
I mean, it looks to me, just based on headlines, that there's some parity, right, in the other sports, and things are competitive for the most part. And so the new schools to the league, I think they're kind of sliding right in and finding their niche in terms of being competitive in other sports besides football. And there's some parity in football, but I think with other sports, you're seeing it more, the competitiveness.
Yeah. I mean, he was talking about parity. We've seen a little bit of that. Like you said, I just recorded the fall catch-up. And Ludington girls ended up capturing the WMC, what they just competed in for the title, right?
Yep, and girls golf, yeah.
Right. So a little bit of the parity we've seen, but I think everything's going like according to plan right now, what we expected.
And Ludington boys tennis just won. Now that's a little different because it's not technically the West Michigan Conference. That is the Coastal Conference, is what they call that for tennis. And so in soccer, Ludington's leading the way there. In boys soccer, they've had a really good program for quite a while now. And they're entering tonight's games or entering Monday night's games of this week. They were 16-1-1, won like 10 straight matches, something like that.
So do other sports, will they have rivers and lakes conference championships, or is it one?
And they don't. It depends on the sport. Like if a sport has varsity teams from each member school, from all member schools, then they'll have divisions.
Okay.
So for like football, volleyball, those sports. But if there's a sport that doesn't have a varsity team from every team, then they just put it into one conference. So for example, soccer is one that's like that.
Okay.
So. But on that topic, though, I wanted to just ask you guys, was the WC's move, the expansion, and then the move to divisions, was that a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, like I said in past podcasts, as an AD, I was in favor of expansion. I don't think it needs to go to the level or lengths of like the OK conferences, those mega conference, but the addition of new blood that's somewhat geographical, like we don't have to drive too far. It can't be bad, you know. And I'm surprised that there weren't other schools in the area that applied, and is there potential of it growing if those schools that are geographically it makes sense? You know, do we expand it to bigger? You know, those are conversations to be had in the future, but I like where it's at, you know.
What do you think? I mean, you've seen just in football already, you've seen, you know, Ravenna take on the likes of, you know, Holton, Hesperia, which they haven't faced those teams in quite a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you think that's a healthy thing to get maybe schools of like size and similar type communities together like that?
Yeah, me personally, when it first happened, I wasn't too big of a fan just because I thought it would be just very different just to see like these teams we've always played and then not really playing new teams. But as the season's gone on, it doesn't seem too different. Like it seems pretty, these teams coming in, it just seems like good competition for everyone. And it doesn't seem too bad from like, I kind of changed my view on it a little bit as the season's gone on.
Now, in the case of Ravenna, too, specifically football, and they're still playing Oak Ridge and Montague, so,
yeah,
you know, and it's probably good maybe that they avoided Whitehall this year. So,
well, you know, and to speak to that, so, you know, maybe the shift to the smaller, more equitable size schools encourages kids to come out and play football, especially because they know they don't have to line up against Oak Ridge and Whitehall, whose student bodies are twice their size. And so those kids at Shelby that haven't signed up in the past because they look at a schedule and go, I don't want to line up against them. Now they're lining up, right? You know, potentially.
I've heard that.
There's equity there now. So
I've heard that from different ADs, especially some of the northern ADs in the conference. You know, maybe their programs have struggled a little bit, and they brought up that same point because it kind of manifests itself with the kids that you go out there, your team get beat up, and then you're like, well, why am I doing this? Because I'm a fringe player on a team that's getting beat up week after week. Why am I spending my time doing
I'm looking at my schedule and going, I got Oak Ridge, Montague, Whitehall, you know, like, why am I, you know, sending myself through the grinder, right?
Yeah. No, I think, like I said a little bit earlier, everything's going kind of according to plan, what we thought it would. And right now I'm supporting it for the most part. I like how it's going. I'm hoping that some of this will eventually elevate that level of play that we see of the likes of the teams that maybe aren't capturing that many victories. But we talked about some of the niches, you know, in other sports. Some of these teams that are introduced to the conference are starting to kind of gain their identity in those other sports, and hopefully it transfers over to some of these bigger sports like football.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of shifts we see in terms of not just enrollment, but how it relates to the divisions, because they already had these divisions set before the enrollments for 2022-23 came out, because technically Hart is larger than Manistee, so really Hart should be in the big school division right now, Manistee in the small school division, but it was already determined before then. I mean, are we going to see
Hart's
that?
bigger than Montague, right?
They might be bigger than Montague,
I think
too.
they
now.
are, right?
Yeah.
I think Montague's the smallest of the big schools.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I have to believe they're going to look at enrollment, if not every year, maybe every other. I know the
think it was
OK
every 2 or 3 years,
If the
what I
OK
heard.
does every 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you have to take that into consideration, and
Yeah.
as you continue to keep the league intact.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think you're going to see crazy shifts, but you
No.
might see some shifts like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, I just hope that as it goes on, that some of these teams right now that are maybe struggling with numbers and stuff like that will eventually be more competitive, and then it turns into bigger games and stuff like that for these teams.
So, what do you think the future looks like for the conference, especially in the divisional breakdown? I mean, do you think that, we've talked about before, and I think what's made West Michigan Conference football and sports very good over the years is keeping up with the Joneses. Like in football, you have to elevate your game, otherwise you're going to be left behind. Do you think that could ever happen from the divisional alignment in each division? You think that's going to happen, or you just think there's things in place where it won't allow it maybe?
Well, the administration that's in place now throughout the conference is pretty open-minded, obviously, because of the expansion. And so I think anything's a possibility. They're at least willing to listen in the name of equity and fairness. So, I look around like, why didn't Fruitport apply to the league? Why didn't Newaygo? Why doesn't Grant? Like, those to me still make sense. They're close enough to Muskegon County. You're not having to drive very far. They don't have to drive as far, right? Spring Lake in there, I know they have to cross the bridge, which would kill some of them. But, I think there are still schools that are close enough that make sense. And maybe after they see how this goes, they start to reconsider where they're at. And maybe it turns into a 2-tier 10, team league or something like that,
Yeah, I heard that White Cloud. I heard this Friday. I didn't know this, but I heard White Cloud had applied too, before this expansion,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't a fit at the time. So we'll see. But any thoughts on that in terms of maybe where this could go in the future? I mean, could it grow into even more than what it is now?
It'd definitely be interesting to see if it did grow, to see who would want to get in. Like you talked about, like the Fruitport, the people, you talked about that equity. And I just wonder how that would look and how other people inside of it, that are inside of it right now, especially like the main WMC teams before the expansion, how they would feel about it personally if it grew into a mega conference. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about not how the teams feel that are coming in, how the teams are thinking that have already been in it, how they feel about the new guys coming in, kind of, because it was almost like their conference to start, and now see how they like all the new guys coming in and stuff like that.
Yeah, so let's go back to that Ravenna North Muskegon discussion. This could be fun. So they've been developing a pretty good rivalry, I think, especially in football and boys basketball. Do you guys seeing that continue? Do you think both are in a good spot where that's going to continue with those schools in particular? I bring that up just for timeliness sake because of the game of the week and everything, and they're both enjoying good seasons in football.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be biased. I think as far as North Muskegon goes, the next 3 to 4 years, we'll be competitive. We have a good group of kids. We finally have some structures within the school day and school systems that allow our kids to develop themselves as athletes, some lifting classes that weren't there before, and so I think you're seeing a direct result of how we're competing with that weight program and our certified trainer that's in there, Coach Pete, who's doing a great job through Trinity Health, and so biasly I would say that I feel like North Muskegon, from a boys' athletic standpoint, they're going to be in a pretty good spot overall.
Yeah, I think the rivalry is just going to keep growing. I mean, it's already pretty big. Last season, we played 2 times in football, 3 times in basketball, then baseball. So we play North Muskegon. Ravenna North Muskegon's a game that's played more than any other. And just like you were saying with like the in the school stuff, Ravenna's also got a new weight program coming up too. We got a new PE teacher who's also helping with football, who's kind of brought a whole new thing to the weight room again and stuff, getting more guys involved and all that stuff. So I think the rivalry is going to keep growing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is the Ravenna North Muskegon one the biggest one you think for you when you were going through school, or is there one that was bigger than that?
It's hard to say. I think for me, all the schools were pretty equal. Like Whitehall, Montague, Oak Ridge, North Muskegon, we're all pretty equal. But North Muskegon just seemed to be, because we were always playing them in, not only were we playing them in the regular season, we've seen them in districts and in the playoffs. So the other teams, we never play Oak Ridge or any of those guys in the playoffs. So we always ran North Muskegon in districts.
And that's not going to change anytime soon. They'll be in the same districts forever.
I think the two schools are just really equal talent wise. So when they play, it all just comes down to who wants it more. That's why it's always such a good game, because it doesn't, talent wise, they stack up pretty equal. So then just whoever wants it, that's why it's always such a good game.
No, and they have been. Those football and basketball
been
matchups
great.
in particular could have gone either way each of those times in a lot of those cases. So, Tate, from your perspective, someone from Montague, what were your impressions of North Muskegon and Ravenna? Not the athletes, the schools, the student sections, the arrogance, the aura, all that stuff. If you look
vibe.
at just the vibe.
The vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally loved playing in North Muskegon's gym. Unfortunately, I didn't have a very good game against North Muskegon, and I love playing in loud gyms where I can't hear myself think. But for whatever reason, I think it was because of whoever was guarding me that game, the freshman. He played me pretty well. I forgot who it was. He played point guard last year for him.
Was it James or no?
Was it Ben Meyer?
It might have actually been Ben Myers.
Ben Myers, yeah.
Yeah, it was Ben Myers. Ben Myers, I thought, played me pretty good. And I don't know. I've always loved playing against North Muskegon for their student section. They've always been someone who's been really loud, and there's someone who's, don't they get awards for their student section?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have.
We did, yeah.
And I think they deserve it because there's someone who made it. They probably altered some
I
of
think
our
Ken
players'
knew
games.
some people at the MHSA office, but besides that, yeah, they won it.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
So I've always loved playing against North Muskegon. I've had no problem with anybody over there. I've always liked everyone I've played against. Not anybody too arrogant. Same thing with the Ravenna. I thought all of them are someone who I played against from Ravenna. They've all played tough. No matter how big they were, no matter how small they were, there's someone who's always going to scrap and be tough and play gritty. So I personally have loved playing against both teams.
You've said that before, too, that they'll surprise you sometimes.
Yeah.
But
And they gave us fits our sophomore year. We played against Ravenna twice, and I think they beat us by 20 both years my sophomore year. So maybe I don't like Ravenna.
Mm-hmm.
what do you think of North Muskegon just all across the board?
Yeah, like
The
Tate
good
said.
and the bad.
Yeah, for sure. Their gym for basketball, that place is always my favorite to play too. They're always loud. I remember I was just telling someone the other day, in football you have student sections that are yelling stuff all the time, and when you're playing football, it's a little different because you're way out on the field. In basketball, you hear stuff, but in football, I never really heard anything they said until I was at a North Muskegon game. At North Muskegon, it was their homecoming. I'm not gonna say what, but that was like one of the first times in football that I actually heard the student section, like some specific stuff. So that was, they're always fun to play against.
They have the best student section, would you say? Just
I'd say
across sports, North Muskegon?
For the West Michigan Conference, I don't know if I could think of.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else who would take it, so I would have to say North Muskegon.
Probably North Muskegon.
And what is it that you think that makes it? Because I'm impressed by that too. Football games, basketball games, they're into it. There's numbers there, just all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll go back to when I was the principal there, and I really made a focus to try to develop school spirit and school culture. Not that it wasn't there before, but just to kind of enhance it. And that Battle of the Fans was the perfect platform to be able to do that. And so just being real intentional in it, and I think you just see the growth of student sections across, the area. Where there's themes and that stuff wasn't around before, right? Like it's organized.
A lot of schools trying to do that now.
Yeah, it's good, and it's good, clean fun for the most part, right? And I mean, you get some knuckleheads who might do and say things that they shouldn't, that aren't good sportsmanship, but for the most part, it's pretty innocent. And so I think just being intentional, having a group of seniors who really want to buy in and make some memorable moments, those all contribute to the engagement by students in that student body in the sections.
How large is the North Muskegon baby powder budget? Because they were letting that fly during the game of the week with Hart and North Muskegon.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be up there. I don't know who's sponsoring that. If that's Van Dyke Mortgage,
Could we
baby powder.
Do we have Johnson & Johnson maybe you get them on the line and see if we can maybe support CatchMark a little bit here since we're supporting them by the way, that TikTok is blowing up and it's almost catching TikTok Tate's highlights from Whitehall Montague, that TikTok of North Muskegon section throwing the baby powder in the air.
Good work, TikTok Tate. That's you.
Good work, Scott. That TikTok blew up.
It did.
That's impressive.
Yep. So, but I mean, what are your impressions of Ravenna as, former administrator, a coach, a parent, all those things?
I think there's a lot of similarities just in the community aspect. Education's important. There are high expectations. Ravenna's obviously a little bit more rural, but they really kind of are the same in my opinion. The size obviously, but just high academic expectations, high athletic expectations, high behavior expectations, good solid families for the most part that are raising those kids. And so I think they're really more similar than they are not similar.
I definitely agree with that. What do you think, Kyle, in terms of the way, as far as that goes, what's it like living in a community like Ravenna? You wouldn't know as much about North Muskegon, obviously, but living in a place like Ravenna, and then once you get out and see other places, going to college and other things, I mean, how does that really impact you, what you think about Ravenna?
Yeah, so far, just from going to college in Allendale, I personally like coming back to Ravenna. I like the small area, and that's a lot how North Muskegon is. I think they're a small town, kind of everybody knows everybody type thing. But when you're away, even in a place like Allendale, it's not super big, but it's big enough. Like it's just not the same. You don't know everybody there. I mean, in the small towns, you go to the gas station and you see 5 people and stuff like that. So,
and that's good and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they both have Wescos now, which Wesco, we're waiting for a call back. All right.
Shameless plug.
Yep.
We just got one, so.
I know. So there's some competition there with the Speedway and Wesco.
Oh, yeah.
In Ravenna there now. So.
Yeah.
And I don't think that those two communities are exclusive to what most communities in West Michigan are. Kids are they don't know what they have until they leave. And when they start to have their own kids, they look back and go, that actually is a really good place to raise a family. And so a lot of those families come back because they are great communities to raise families. And that's the appeal, besides being on a lake, of being in the area.
Mm-hmm. You see that a lot. And even in this conference, like, you might, that's terrible over there. Like the difference between Whitehall and Montague, people are like, oh man, I'm not going to live over there. It's like, okay. So, and I know Brent shared this story on the podcast before, but his wife being from Idaho, and when they first moved back here, and this was her first time here when Kara moved back, Brent was trying to tell her about the differences between Whitehall and Montague, and she'd cross the bridge and shake her head. She's like, oh, there's no difference. But then she lived here for a few years, and then you're like, okay, I see what you're saying now.
Huge difference.
But, you look at communities like that. You look at communities like, Hart Shelby, communities like Manistee, Ludington, because that's the 4th longest football rivalry in the state.
Yeah, that was interesting to learn. I didn't know that.
They've been playing since 1895.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Older than me. That was even before I graduated.
A few years. By a few years, right.
A few years. Right. But it's interesting. But when you're in competition, you're like, oh, we don't like those guys. That place sucks. All this stuff. And really it's the same, or very much the same. Not built the same, but a lot of the values are the same.
I would agree.
Yeah, I guess.
You guess? You beg to differ on that?
No, it is the same, but recently removed from high school, I try not to agree on that too much. We're still different across the bridge, I like to say, but I like a lot of those guys over there, so I won't scoff too much.
So in terms of those rivalries, and we talked about rivalries before, but one, I don't know if we got into it too much, but Whitehall, North Muskegon. The reason I bring that up is because I heard through third hand, fourth hand, whatever it was, North Muskegon wants a piece of Whitehall.
That's not true. We're going to put that rumor to rest. That's not true. We are into self-preservation. So if there were ever a year that we feel like we would have the kids to compete, it would be this year, but not with what they have to offer. So we're going to take a pass on that one.
You never know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll play them in anything else.
Right.
But I think football will just stay in our lane for now.
No, and I think they both those schools, and Ravenna for that matter, any of those schools could maybe do some damage in the playoffs. But it all depends on your draw, like anything else. But what else is on your minds in terms of as it relates to the conference and what you've seen from football this year? And because that's the one that kind of moves the needle. But like, what are your biggest takeaways and what have you learned so far this football season?
Well, like we said before, I think overall things are shaking out the way we kind of thought they would shake out as you just kind of look at the start of a football season and knowing the history and what's coming up and the kids that are there, that for the most part things are shaking out. The thing that intrigues me is more from a internal perspective, our school communities having conversations about what we need to do in order to compete. And so those are those deeper kind of reflective questions that you can have as you go through the process. But at the end of a football season or whatever sports season, to ask themselves, are we willing to do what we need to do to compete? And that's, whether that's supporting a program, hiring more teachers that coach, implementing a weight room program, those sorts of supports that, you need to be able to look around and go, are we doing that? Because they are, and they're successful. And are we willing to support that?
What about you, Kyle? What are you thinking about in terms of what you've seen this football season, but just in general, where things are going?
Yeah, I think it'll be cool to see in the offseason what changes teams make and then the difference from the first year to the second year of the new conference. Because I think some of these teams that we're seeing are going to be totally different teams after 1 year being in the new conference, because now they have a sense of they feel like they can compete. They're a lot closer to competing than they were before when they had to beat teams like Whitehall that were just a lot bigger. But now they really feel like they're a lot closer. So when they make a change in the offseason, to see how it really helps by next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the combination of the expansion and CatchMark Sports covering things is going to affect everything, especially sports-wise. But I think overall, this combination of CatchMark SportsNet covering WMC and the expansion might end up really helping high school participation numbers. I mean, you're seeing all these guys, they look on TikTok or on Instagram and they see all their friends playing and they see them all over, and then they see their boys on a YouTube video. I think overall, the culmination of those different things is going to end up driving that number up.
No, and I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much. Okay, maybe a little bit, but it's been exciting. Especially the social media space. We've really seen a huge growth in that. I mean, we talked about this on previous podcasts, but since Kyle hasn't been able to chime in, I don't know how much you're on social media. I know you're on TikTok because I saw you and your girlfriend do one. What was that again? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. There's a few, yeah.
So, can you give him some pointers on TikTok since your name is TikTok Tate?
Give him some pointers. Are you talking about on his TikToks?
Yeah.
No, his were textbook, I thought. Used a great sound. Decent use of hashtags, great dances.
I was a little disturbed by a couple of them I saw from Bishop Lee. I got to admit.
Did you see his car wash TikTok?
Yeah.
Or what's the one on the bus where he's holding the football and he's throwing the different emoji expressions? Did you see that one too?
Yeah, I did. That's a new trend. That one's a pretty new trend.
Have you seen that one or not?
I have not.
He needs to see the car wash. Basically, Bishop Lee, it's the song. I think it's an Ellie Goulding song. It's "You show the lights, no stop me," but they're all in a car wash, and he'll cut to different things, and all of his friends are spraying water and soap on each other in the car wash, and the self-service car wash. You just gotta see
I'll just have to check it out. But Tate, singer too.
Yeah.
You're pretty lucky
Man.
if you have Bishop on any kind of social media. You're pretty lucky to see.
It's a treat every single time I turn on anything.
It's all intentional from him. I know it is. He's got a plan.
Yeah, he does.
He's not just off the cuff. But so give me some ideas on this. This is a good topic because each week at the game of the week, I'm always trying to throw a TikTok. And yes, I'm 49 and I do make TikToks. Not my own account. Not yet anyway.
Soon.
That's coming up. But so usually, and it shows you being a sports writer that all we think about is food and sports because every TikTok we do, or one of them at least, has to do with a local food establishment. Like Friday, we did something on Wolfie's. I'm running out of ideas, guys, because I was at North Muskegon 2 weeks ago and we did something on the food truck. Where should I be going? Where should I be looking for these next TikToks?
Not to me.
You
It
don't
would
have,
look that way.
You don't have any TikTok expertise yourself?
I have a TikTok account only to be able to monitor my kids. And apparently my wife's TikToking now. And so, yeah, she's like, oh, did you see my last one? And I'm like, well, honey, you have two.
Can you at least like it?
And I liked it.
I was going to say,
She's
you at least
"You're
liked it, right?
You're the best. And I'm like, you're the best too.
Good job. Okay, you guys.
Is it really love if you're not TikToking? I mean,
No.
No. Welcome to modern love. Chivalry isn't dead.
Come on, guys. You guys are in that sphere. Let me know.
So what are you looking
What's
for?
really resonating? Whatever resonates. Like, I will say, though, just holding the camera up in front of the student sections, those things just go crazy. Whether they're great shots of them or not, they just do.
Yeah. I think we've talked about before, people like seeing themselves, and I think people also love to see Billy dance. I think those two things are driving forces in CatchMark SportsNet TikToks. But I don't know. I think you're you're on your own for this one. You got to find your way through the TikTok.
I've got a couple
TikTok
ideas.
realm.
It's all right.
Unless Kyle's got something up his sleeve.
I was thinking one thing that I saw was in terms of getting people to watch like the podcast and stuff, posting clips on TikTok of like little parts of the podcast so that people will see that little point, that little 30-second clip, and then they'll be like, oh, maybe I want to go watch the whole thing. Because that's what I do on podcasts. I see like a post on Instagram or TikTok of just like a 30-second clip of something they talked about. And then I'll be like, oh, I want to see what else they talked about. So then I'll go watch the whole podcast.
No, and we've been trying. We're working on that too. Tate's been putting some posts up on that, but it's a tough thing. I don't know if it's just not crazy enough or what it is.
No, yeah, I think they do better on maybe. Obviously, we don't see the great numbers on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, but the TikTok, the little clips that we share, I guess that's just not resonating with some of the younger audiences because TikTok's more of that. I'd say 15, 14, up to 20-something age range for that demographic or whatever.
But there's something to be said for that about your point, Kyle, because you see a lot of the maybe more popular podcasts, they do that. Put little snippets out, and that's the reason they do that. It's because they're not going to put the whole thing out there, but they just want to get enough just to get people interested.
Yeah.
a little teaser.
Yeah, I remember you guys talking about, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago about how the use of Facebook, some people don't use it anymore. Personally, I use Facebook pretty much just for sports stuff. Like I follow like M Live, CatchMark, local sports, all that. So when I get on Facebook, it's usually just to look for scores and like different. I pretty much use it as a sports thing.
And I will say this, and again, I don't think we're in a position where we're quite ready to take on a bunch of student reporters, but more and more, going out to almost every game I go to now, I got a high school kid or somebody referring them, hey, they love what you do. Do you think they could get involved? And I mean, I think the interest is there, and I think it would be there, but I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when we met last year in my role as the principal there at North Muskegon, we talked about the possibilities of what does that look like as you start to establish a presence, and how do we get kids to come in and really kind of amp that thing up, whether it's through reporting or internships or whatever that looks like. They're all great learning opportunities for things that could be a potential career. And so kudos for you guys for being that visionary as you move forward in becoming the source of local sports.
No, we're trying to, but there's still that big step from being a visionary to actually putting it into play. And
yeah, I mean, implementation takes time. You're always going to have a dip, so just keep at it.
I mean, you even said, didn't you say like some of your friends and stuff like, I want to do that?
No, yeah, I tell them what they do, and I show them some of the stuff they do, and they'd love to have that job from the sounds of it. A lot of them. There's just been several guys that have came up to me and been like, hey, is CatchMark hiring?
Yeah.
So they're interested.
No, that's cool to hear.
I think it would be cool too if so many kids are getting interested, if they would kind of do it in like a school thing, to where it would be like a smaller thing, but like the school could do, like they could report on their own school, and like maybe a few students sit down and have a podcast about like what's going on at their school, not just sports, but everything like that. That would be cool if enough people got interest in it.
Nope, those are definitely ways that we could help with each of those schools, and those have been thought about and discussed. But I did hear from a fellow reporter Friday. I don't know if he's necessarily buying into what we're doing, because he's like, do people even watch the videos? Do they like them? I'd rather just write stories. Why do you think? He goes, no offense, but do people like this stuff? So I don't know. What's your perception, Ben? Do they like this format that, where where it's a lot of social media based, it's a lot of video based. I mean, is that the right way to go?
Is there another format? Like, what's the other
Yeah.
format?
Just written format, like maybe
Like
some of the other publications are doing.
Like in a newspaper or a magazine that doesn't get looked at? I mean,
Right.
I guess I'm not sure that there are other formats that
Right.
are even to consider.
Yeah, I think the videos are definitely great. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that are going to read an article versus watching a video, or just hearing about it in an article versus watching a video of the highlights and stuff like that. So I think it's great.
No, yeah, I think, like Ken said, how many people are going to go, oh, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that video. Where's that super long article that I can sit down and read for 10 to 15 minutes? I hate getting a bunch of
Wait a
information.
minute, time out. We just had your monthly one-on-one review, and you said you'd prefer to read over anything else.
I do like reading books. I don't know why. It's because I was raised to read, and that's kind of a nerdy thing or whatever, but I like sitting down and reading a decent book and garnering or gathering some new information every once in a while. So
That's very commendable.
I guess so.
Singer and a scholar.
I'm trying to put it all together. over
Lifetime
here.
learner.
I hope so. I'm going to try to.
Yeah, no question. But no, so again, one more time back with North Muskegon and Ravenna. I think we're getting to that time of the show now where we need to kind of put it out on the table. Plus, I need to know what score to predict on Friday. So
Let's make him go first.
Yeah, I think we should.
well, I don't have to because I'm the show host and I got my picks on the mark. That's what I'm hiding behind.
Yeah, okay.
I'll hide behind that. So who wants to go first with their North Muskegon Ravenna pick? I want to hear a score, but I want to hear reasons and some breakdown from each of you.
I think we should hear the bias scored over here.
Yeah, I'll go. I think it's going to be a good game. It'll be competitive. It's North Muskegon's homecoming, so that adds a little bit of flavor for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a nice night, weather-wise. I say our turf is a little messed up, and so I put a plug into turf Fred Jacks Field.
I was going to say we'll get back to that in a second here.
It's coming.
I did want to ask you
Right.
about that.
But I'm going to say North Muskegon 35-21.
I was thinking the same thing, but the other way. I'm going to have to go Ravenna 35-21. I think last week was big because they have Hogan, who's been making plays all year, but last week they really got players like Drew Mabrito involved.
And Drew's tough.
Yeah, all season he's been kind of not getting a lot of touches and stuff like that and struggling to get going, but last week he really had a game and got it going, and kind of I talked to him like quite a bit and really got his confidence going, because before he was expecting to have a big season, and then after the first couple of games he was getting down and stuff like that, and then after last game he's really got his confidence back. And then just some of those other players other than Hogan, I think are really finding their way, and I think it's going to be good for them.
I think the defenses are actually going to perform pretty well coming up here, and I think my final score, I'm going to go North Muskegon 20, Ravenna 13. I think that's going to be my final score. I think both defenses are going to show up. I think Ravenna's going to be able to cover some guys downfield. They got a couple decent athletes, and I think North Muskegon's just barely going to come out with it.
Yeah, so I
So
said,
whose score are you going to steal?
I'm going to probably do some kind of combination, probably somehow between the three. So you're like, so they're going to tie then. But so from what I've seen, and again, I've said this before as well, but I think sometimes with Ravenna, I'm maybe too hard on them, kind of like a coach is if he's coaching his son can be sometimes, just because you don't want to look like you're biased and all those things. But I was impressed with how hard they played against Montague in week 2, and that's the only time I've seen them this year so far. But that impressed me, just based on what they had coming back, and obviously they lost you and some other guys from last year's team, Kyle. But I was impressed with how hard they played. North Muskegon, watching them, it's just like they got so many weapons, and I'm like, man, how do you contain? You're not going to stop them all. How do you contain them, and how do you mix it up or kind of maybe shake things up enough where maybe they're on their heels a little bit? And that's what I want to see is, I mean, if Ravenna can do that, then that gives their guys in the secondary maybe a little time, will help them out a little bit. But man, it's tough if you give James Young time back there with all the receivers they got back there. It makes it a tough thing. But there's also in a game like this where toughness plays a big mental toughness and the physical toughness play a big role in this game, where sometimes there's those intangibles that can really put a team over the top. So I'll be curious to see not just who the more skilled team is, but more so who the tougher team is mentally.
Well, and I go back to what Kyle said, like, who wants it more, right? Yep. And so talent-wise, you could argue, where that's at, but at the end of the day, who wants it more, right? Because they're really kind of the same.
Yeah, it seems like every game, Ravenna or Muskegon, it's evenly matched. Well, they got this guy. Well, they got this guy.
Right.
It's just they have the same skill level. It's just who wants it. That's why it seems like every Ravenna North Muskegon game is 1-score game, or in basketball 5-point game, stuff like that. They're never blowouts.
And they're not built the same either. Hunter Hogan is way different than James Young in terms of quarterbacks and that kind of thing. Like Hunter Hogan, you could argue might be the best overall raw athlete on the field, although people might say, well, Ben Myers is a great athlete, and he is. And there's other kids on both teams that you might be able to stake that claim. But I just think it's pretty fascinating because it's different styles. They do it different ways too. So I'm not going to let you get off the hook unless we talk a little bit more about that turf thing, because A, I know you're passionate about it.
Yeah. B,
I know the guy that lines the field for them, Scott Rollenhagen. I'll give him a shout out here. He's always complaining that I never mention him on these, but so there you go, Scott. He's talking about the new technology that they're getting or maybe getting for painting the fields, but I'm thinking, but if you're getting turf, you don't need it, right?
Amen.
So is this going to happen?
Well, I mean, to me, so we're landlocked as it is, right? There's not a lot of open space. And so the one piece of land that's the most used is Fred Jacks Field, by multiple teams, organizations, youth, blah, blah, blah. It makes the most sense to me. Instant relief on all those programs to find places to play is to turf the field. And I know that we have some other things in play in terms of a new baseball facility, possible tennis facilities, and all those things that community members went out and rallied for, and we passed that millage a few years ago. But it makes the most sense to me to turf the field and to start there and to work out around that. Then you're not having to do like last year when Caleb Parnan has to move his soccer game because the turf's so bad. We're going to have JV football, powder puff, 2 soccer games, and homecoming this week on a field that's already tore up. And one, it's not safe, right? And 2, that's a source of pride for a community. And so we want that to be the best it can be. And I would challenge that turfing it does that. In fact, I would turf my lawn if I could, because I just why not? I turf it all from my standpoint, and that's kind of been my charge. And so hopefully it does happen. I know it's a process. There's a lot of things involved, but to me, it makes the most sense for our community and school.
So the other facilities where are those going in at?
So the new baseball softball field is going down off of Russell Road. There's a patch of land there, and so that'll have a baseball field, a softball field, and maybe a couple other smaller fields. There was talk about reconfiguring the tennis court area to try to get 8 courts there to be able to host some regionals, some diagonal parking around that area. I'm not sure if that's happening. And North Muskegon can desperately use parking. And so those are the kind of the 2 pieces. And then the current baseball field would be taken down, and that would be made a turf soccer field and then an all-purpose field in that area too. And so, I mean, all great plans. There was a lot of community input into that, but the key piece, the missing piece to me, is to turf the field, turf the football field, turf Red Jacks.
So just because you got Montague and you got Ravenna here now, and I'm looking at both stadiums, just the setup, the structure of them, the entryways, all that stuff. I think they're both gorgeous stadiums from the standpoint of the stands, like the home stands, the setup, like the tunnel. I love that tunnel at Ravenna. That would have been sweet as a player to run through that thing. We used to run around the victory bell onto the field.
Oh, yeah.
So that you touch that. Not ring it, because you got to win to ring it. But so do you think those facilities need turf as well, or do you think they're fine on their own?
I mean, we've talked about it before in the past, and it's come very close, but ended up not passing to be able to fund for the turf. I don't remember what year that was. I feel like that was somewhere around 2010, maybe a couple years after. But it's almost happened, but for whatever reason, it just didn't. I don't know if we need turf. Of course, who doesn't love turf? I feel like it always adds a new aspect to the stadium, to the beauty of the prestige or whatever. So need, I don't know. That's a pretty strong word, but I think most people would like it. The ones who fund it, maybe not as much, but we'll see if it ever does happen. We just passed the mill for the new facility with the basketball court and whatever else is going in there. So turf probably isn't anywhere in the near future.
No.
Right. Well, and the difference between those two communities and ours is that they don't play soccer on those fields. And so we play soccer.
Yeah.
And so that's a component that just adds to the use, right? And so, and you know,
how do you think Citizens Field would look with turf, or are you more partial to the natural grass?
I think it would look great with turf, especially with like the brick that we have around the bleachers and stuff like that, if that was carried on around. But in terms of how our field is right now, I think they do a good job of keeping our field. I mean, we have a soccer field, like you were saying, so it doesn't get roughed up as much. We don't play multiple games on it a week, so we just play football games on it. And I don't think we really need it. Everyone would love it, but I don't think we need it. I think our field's usually in pretty good shape.
Any other parting shots before we say goodbye on this episode?
Tate Stine got a new phone.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Thank you. I should probably thank him on here, Mr. Rath. Thank you very much. I can't believe you did that. But I do want to talk about old Big Shot Bill and I talked about on the broadcast for Montague versus North Muskegon, the possibility of West Michigan Conference fantasy football.
Oh, man.
And I was wondering how you guys would feel about that.
Interesting.
Like picking the actual high school players? That's interesting.
So betting on high school kids.
Don't give Brent any more ideas, by the way.
Why not?
You're probably right.
At the last game, we were just talking about that. I think I was standing up top with one of my buddies, and I think Hunter scored another touchdown, and Grant goes, imagine if I had him on my fantasy team right now.
That would be kind of cool, though.
Think about all the kids in the student section going, he's on my fantasy.
That's not a bad idea.
That's pretty funny.
That's actually pretty cool.
All right, so I guess I got a new project to work on next week. Thanks, Tate.
I'll help you with that one.
All right, I'm going to close this show off before I get any more ideas, all right? No, that's great, though. I appreciate it. So thanks again to guest Kyle Beebe from Ravenna for joining us today. I know you had to do a lot to make it happen coming over from Grand Valley, but we appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it, yeah. And then, again, thanks as always to the co-hosts, Ken Byard and Tate Stine. I'm Scott DeCamp, and before we let go, we're going to say one more thank you to our sponsors, Grieve Law, Big Stone Therapies, Green Ridge Realty with Chris Dykem and Sarah Reel, North Grove Brewers, Foundation Systems of Michigan and John Botten, Coldwell Banker with Dave Duesenberry, Scheid Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, and then, of course, our title sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage and Dirk Insurance Group. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and enjoy the games this Friday. See you later.